What's going on, guys? This is Ian from Axis Systems, and if I look like hammered dog meat, that's because I'm at the tail end of my quarantining process with the virus that corresponds with the pandemic we're currently in. So this is going to be interesting for me, mainly because as a kid, I had a fake Christmas tree that we would take down from the attic every season, and we never got the evergreen trees just because my parents were supposedly allergic to them. So we had fake Christmas tree, and we kept that thing running for like 20 years. I think it was recently replaced.
The quest for the perfect tree is a rite of the
Oh,
holidays.
nice. We got Brooks. He's like the original narrator. Yeah, I'd say the majority of How It's Made episodes were done with his narration. Just a wonderful voice.
Season. And ever since the late 19th century, the use of synthetics finally gave us the perfect fake fur. Today's faux furs can be several
short of
stories
puns.
tall. Big enough for your town square. Such a stretch.
Okay, ours did not look like
These
that.
big
Ours was a piece of
artificial
crap.
trees start with a steel skeleton. Roller.
Okay, right off the bat, this is a lot more intense equipment than I had in mind. So we got the gentleman here feeding a piece of probably 1 inch by 1 inch square tubing, probably like a 16 thick, mild steel. Obviously, they're MIG welding it. Got the welding machine back here. You can see the MIG welding spools. They have a ton. So this piece of equipment definitely makes bending a precise radius a heck of a lot easier than doing it by hand or trying to do it with like a torch and a vise and a hammer and possibly an anvil. So this looks like a purpose-built piece of equipment for specifically this sort of tube bending application. I'm sure you could put round tube in there too, but the dies that they have on here look like they're designed for square tubing. And you can see the axis control right here, so they can change the actual output of the radius. If this is closer down to the bottom wheels here, it'll be a much tighter radius.
Workers weld
Yeah,
vertical
that would be
supports to the arcs, building
not
the
easy to do
structure in
by hand.
sections.
So
A
we got the
spray of
MIG welder.
polyester powder.
Okay, they're making a Formula One race car right now. I was picturing the crappy Christmas tree you get from Walmart in the 90s. This is like a corporate display in a ballroom or something. Alright, so far everything's pretty much been done by hand with the assistance of that rolling machine. The welding is done by hand. The installation, as you can see here, is done by hand. This is going to be an extremely heavy Christmas tree when it's done at this rate. Okay, here we
They
go.
slice
This
it
is
into
more
4-inch
interesting
wide
for sure.
strips of the narrow plastic strips, then goes under a roller with even more blades. They shred it into a needle-like configuration, leaving a solid
Oh,
spine.
cool.
At the
Okay, let's not... So it looks like this material, usually like a type of plastic's already been manufactured in a roll form. And from there, it goes through a couple of sets of rollers to keep the tension. And then from there, it goes through different slicing wheels and slice them without tearing them. That's the trick here. Into these 4 rolls here that are a lot thinner and easier to manage. This is very similar to a paper machine. If not, it might actually be a purpose-built paper machine, kind of retrofitted to work with these Christmas tree tinselings. You can see the manual knobs here to adjust the heights. I'm not exactly sure what this piece of equipment is called. Looks like there's a hydraulic system down here. You usually see these on the back of CNC lathes, but I'm not exactly sure what that's for. So we got a shaft here with some lock collars, and attached to the lock collars is the blades that are presumably removable because they're most likely going to get dull after a while. Even plastic can definitely wear out tooling. And once these blades actually wear out, the material probably tears and doesn't cut correctly and would then need to be replaced. It looks like there's set screws on the sides of the blades, and I would imagine that these blades are in two pieces, so the pieces can be taken off the lock collar and replaced pretty easily without having to take the whole shaft off.
Leaving a solid spine at the center to hold the simulated needles together.
Okay, that's great that they paused this for us. There's a lot to look at right here. It looks all mechanical and fancy and nice. So a lot of times it's hard to tell with these camera shots what exactly is going on. So we've got a chain drive going on over here, which not really sure exactly what it's doing, but it's tied in directly with the grinder wheel here that is actually cutting the plastic into the desired kind of tinseling shape. It really just looks like a couple of involute gears that they've kind of thrown on this machine, and with enough pressure against the bottom plate or whatever's going on down here, it's able to cut this shape out. So they've clearly got it down to a science, which is great, but it doesn't look like we're gonna actually see the secrets there, which is fine. It's nice enough for them to actually have stopped the machine so we could look at this thing. PVC, okay.
These artificial needles.
PVC is pretty commonly worked with in the engineering world for more than just Christmas decorations. I've worked with it on many occasions in the mills, lathes, you name it. It's very cheap. It's easy to work with.
These artificial needles come in an assortment of colors. So if you want bliss,
all sorts of
you can
pretty
really go
colors.
out on a limb.
Looks like they got all the Charlie Brown Christmas tree
Streams of the
colors
fringed green and a strip of
available.
brown PVC.
So the plastic stuff is going through a couple of more roller things for some reason. Garland, that's the name I've heard it been called by like my grandma. So this little wheel here was definitely made in a machine shop at some point, probably on an indexing head. You can see every probably 2.5 degrees or so there's a notch, and that's to give it some traction against the garland as it goes through this machine. And as we see down, if we zoom down here, you can see that this machine is quite long. A couple of DC motors up here. So one is spinning this, which holds onto the garland, which is actually spinning it on the wire. And this motor presumably drives this chain, which pulls the track all the way down at a certain feed rate that's probably been refined over many years so they can get this thing to run as fast as possible.
Giant scissors slice it to the correct length. Then frost the PVC needles with a spray of white latex paint.
Don't mess up at work or they'll send you to the snow room. And you'll have to
PVC needles with a spray branches that to make branches that appear snow-tipped. This machine twists and then frosts the PVC
Oh
needles
man, yeah.
with a spray of white latex.
That's clearly like the worst room to work at this place. I'm sure that's like the joke there, because you got all this crap all over the place all the time after the whole garland's already been processed. So this is just like kind of painting it or something in a way, and all this stuff is flinging out like crazy. I'm assuming it's just some sort of paint, but I'm not
To make branches that appear
entirely sure.
scissors slice a twist and then frost the PVC needles with a spray of white latex paint.
Similar type of contraption. They have a nice little shower curtain over here to prevent it from flying across the shop. It's cut off by hand and thrown in a pile, ready to go. The paint's actually probably already dried from the air cooling it or drying it from the rotation. Yeah, it looks like a pretty, not a super fun job, but someone's got to do it. I think this video might have been better suited being named how tinsel and garland is made, as opposed to misleading us into thinking we're going to see like a residential Christmas tree instead of this giant pyramid of Giza that you could probably hide inside of. A full-grown man is this tall compared to it, so these are most likely a tree you would decorate in front of City Hall. Probably not in your living room, though. That episode of How It's Made was kind of a letdown, so I found another video kind of doing the same thing, making tinseling and garland and stuff. This time we're in China, and there's a little intro on how the video starts off claiming that Christmas trees have boosted China's economy to kind of take the edge off of your Christmas tree being made in China. Anyway, but we're just here to study the equipment, not necessarily geopolitics at this time. The equipment is very open-sided, not really much in the name of guards or engineering controls to prevent you from sticking your hand in here. But hopefully with enough training, that won't be something that you test out for yourself. Quality still isn't the greatest. So right here, I don't know if they stopped it so they could take a video, but when they restarted the machine, it totally trashed this whole row of stuff. Unless it just takes a while to get going. That's actually pretty funny. It starts to do a little burnout, and then you get this non-conforming product, to say the least. Yeah, you can really tell that this equipment is dated. It's got manual hand cranks everywhere to set the tightnesses of the tension pulleys and wheels, and this big one here presumably sets the tension for the actual cutting die here, which we saw in the last video. Pretty nice result. So this is a fairly common wire control mechanism to steer your wire wherever you need it to go. In this case, wire that has plastic things attached to them, which doesn't seem to hinder it in any way. They come out just fine. In fact, so what's going on here is the wire is being twisted by something down here, and it's being controlled here so it doesn't twist it. So it doesn't twist it back here, because you would just get this tied up mess that you wouldn't be able to control, and it would foul up the machine and all sorts of bad things. So they have a similar setup as the last video where they're drawing the garland out on the steel wire while rotating it, and then some of it's chopped into segments or different lengths or whatever. So we have a young lady holding the bouquet, if you will, of garland as they're being wrapped into a shape like this with this twine, and it's able to be done that quickly with this piece of equipment. So there is a little guard around here, but that's not going to really help. Now this piece of equipment looks extremely dangerous and get it caught that way. So definitely some caution needs to be taken while running one of these winders. Oh god, yeah, that's brutal. You can see the thing just flinging around here. Good thing that she's wearing a glove. But wow, what a old dangerous contraption. Here's what the winder actually looks like when it's stopped. So you've got your twine here, and then you stick the product into this hole like this, and then you turn it on and hope for the best and be careful. I hate to laugh, but it's kind of sad seeing certain factories running things like that, because it's the only choice they have with the equipment that they have. And that's really the big struggle in the manufacturing world. And you get these amazing works of art. Thank you for tuning into Axis Systems. Hope you have a happy holiday, and don't get your hand caught in a Christmas tree garland winding machine.